As you guys found out in my first top 10 video, Crash Bandicoot is my favorite game franchise of all time, and I couldn't wait to make a top 10 video dedicated to Crash Bandicoot and all of his marsupial splendor. The hell is a marsupial? Anyway, this is my top 10 Crash Bandicoot games of all time, and my hair is wet. It's because thinking about Crash Bandicoot makes me wet. Is that bestiality? I'm not sure. Let's just go right into the top 10. Number 10. Whoa! Crash Bandicoot Mind Over Mutant. Although it was the last nail in the coffin of Crash Bandicoot, Mind Over Mutant was essentially the second part of its predecessor, Crash of the Titans. There's an old saying that goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and Radical Entertainment abided by that saying with this game. This game had all the elements that made its predecessor great, the graphics, the platforming, the Titan abilities, but it only had those things. It was essentially the same game as the last, which makes this game rank so low on the list, but not low enough to rule out the game entirely. The game is a great experience, but in order to play it understandingly and coherently, you would need to play its predecessor Crash of the Titans first. Keep in mind, if you're looking for a Crash Bandicoot title to play, there are plenty, and I mean plenty, of others to play before you touch this title. Especially Crash of the Titans, which is a near necessity before playing this game. But I'm talking about enjoyment, not necessity. There are at least 9 other Crash games that you can play before this game to get the most out of the Crash Bandicoot franchise, and here they are. Number 9. Whoa! Crash Nitro Kart. Crash Nitro Kart is indeed the poor man's kart racing game, but it's still a good time killer. The visuals, models, and soundtrack to this game are top-notch for an early PS2 title, and while it isn't as pleasing or fulfilling as another Crash racing title we all know and love, you know who you are, it gets the job done, and it gets the job done well. The bosses in this game are great as well. They don't really live up to previous Crash bosses, but what do you expect from a racing game? Ripperoo, Papu Papu, nitrous oxide. I'm getting off topic. Those are in the past. Jeremy, forward, go, now, CNK. However, the bosses from CNK are all unique and have a funny personality to them, and that's really all that can be asked for. This game is also a good multiplayer game with its various multiplayer race types, such as team races, versus races, and arcade races, and multiple modes to choose from in the battle mode. The things keeping this game low on this list are the game's clunky controls and bad mechanics, but it's still a fun game to play with friends and a great time killer. Now once again, this isn't the ideal Crash Bandicoot title to play. There are still other great Crash titles just waiting to be joysticked. Joysticked? Am I reading the... Joysticked. Who wrote this goddamn script? Number 8. Whoa! Crash Tag Team Racing. I could say the exact same things I said from the Crash Nitro Kart segment, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to talk about what makes this game one spot higher on the list than CNK. Probably the one and sole reason this game is higher on the list than CNK is the clashing. In this game, you can clash with other karts in order for your two karts to become one, with one driver driving the kart, and the other driver, he's not really a driver anymore, he's manning the new gun on the back of the kart in an attempt to shoot down other drivers. This is an extremely fun aspect of the game, and aside from the overworld, is really the only difference between this game and CNK. The controls in this game are a bit more polished, but not much. The tracks still aren't that great this time around, but the soundtrack and visuals are still great. However, if you're only looking to pick up one of the Crash Kart racers, don't pick this one up. Instead, wait for the game that's coming up later in this list. You see what I did there? I left you hanging. Now you have to keep watching. Oh, don't get all rebellious on me. I see you looking at the red X at the top of the window. Don't do it. Don't you click that red X. You're gonna regret it. I've got better titles coming down the line. Just keep watching. Please? Number 7. Whoa! Crash of the Titans. The reboot from Radical Entertainment in an attempt to bring a new good Crash franchise out of the woodwork, Crash of the Titans is an overwhelmingly hated game by the Crash community. But honestly, I liked the game. These games will be referred to through all time as the greatest PlayStation games ever. That is, if it hadn't have been for Crash of the Titans and Mind Over Mutant, which were the final Crash Bandicoot games in the franchise. And they were terrible. They were terrible. Okay, I know what I said. To be completely honest, I was a little mad at Radical when I made that top 10 video, because I had only played the game once, and when I played it, it was so different than any other Crash experience before that I automatically hated it. I know this is a juvenile and close-minded way of thinking, but I've opened up my mind since then, and I've decided to go back to the game. I have gone back to the game, and I have to say, I like it for what it is. The game features redesigns of all the old Crash characters, which is what irritates people most, a new beat-em-up type of Crash gameplay, and new gameplay mechanics like hovering and controlling Titans. This game does a great job of also with the combat in the beat-em-up segments alone, but you don't have to enjoy this game alone. For the first time since Crash Bash, this game features co-op in its adventure mode, allowing you and your friends to journey through the game together, defeating Titans and the Cortexes, roaming around the galaxy. This ain't a galaxy, it's an open world. As mentioned a few times earlier, I wouldn't exactly recommend this as a first-play Crash title. However, it is a very good Crash title, and I would highly recommend you play it after playing a few of the other Crash games. Keep in mind, you may want to keep an open mind about Crash of the Titans. Take it from me, I used to hate it just because it was different, and that's no way to judge something. I just made a life lesson. Don't hurt minorities. That got sucky quick. Number 6.
Whoa!
Crash Bandicoot. The very first Crash Bandicoot game, and the very game that innovated the 3D platforming genre, Crash Bandicoot gave birth to what is, in my opinion, the greatest PlayStation franchise ever created. With Naughty Dog making so many innovations with this game, such as the 3D platforming elements and the detailed levels and characters, no wonder this game became as popular as it did back in the day. I would definitely recommend this game to anyone who is looking to get into the Crash series, but it is by no means the best game in the franchise. Coming up next are the 5 games that each have respective following in regards to thinking it is the best Crash game ever made, and with very good reason. The next 5 games will blow your mind. It'll blow it harder than Lindsay Lohan on crack at a party with a drunk guy. Oh, what the hell. Number 5.
Whoa!
Crash Twinsanity. Crash Twinsanity was the first good Crash game released after The Wrath of Cortex and Crash Nitro Kart, which brought Crash's popularity down heavily. The release of those two games were known as the Crash Bandicoot Drought, and a lot of people didn't think Crash could get out of this drought. However, Crash Twinsanity kind of changed people's opinions. It was a new Crash game with a new feel, where the series' main antagonist, Dr. Neo Cortex, was now teaming up with Crash in efforts to stop a new threat. Also, instead of the warp rooms that we saw in the previous 2 main Crash titles, Warped and Wrath, Crash has now jumped into an open world with fully explorable areas. This was a nice touch for Crash, and I personally very much enjoyed it. The game also has very impressive graphics. While it's not the best graphical game on the PS2, it interacts with itself in such a way that no other Crash game has done, and really, not a lot of other games outside the Crash franchise have done this either. The comedy in this game is also one of its major selling points. Between Lex Lang as Cortex and the overall humor from all involved, it is a very enjoyable game and keeps you hungry for more comedy.
I've ruined the lives of so many. I can't be expected to remember them all. The check bounced. Are you sure? Well, the past few years have kind of been slow. Wrath of Cortex didn't do as well as we'd hoped, and... Fish?
The soundtrack is also very unique, as it doesn't have any instruments whatsoever, only voices by a group named Spiral Mouth. A lot of Crash fans have considered this game to be the greatest Crash game ever made, and although I don't agree with them in this respect, I do agree that it is a spectacular Crash game, and I would highly recommend it. This game is great. It is sincerely what intended to bring Crash out of the gutter, but kinda got there? This game acted as a rope, rappelling down to Crash. As Crash was climbing up, Mind Over Mutant and Crash of the Titans cut this rope and sent Crash to his death. Now, as I know I said earlier, both of those games are very good games, and they are. However, they changed so much that the Crash fanbase got mad at the games for being different, as I did originally. And this is devastating. It's very devastating to see actual good Crash games get hated like these two do. And I am sincerely apologetic to Radical Entertainment for not giving their Crash games a chance. And I hope you guys will both give those two games a chance and Crash Twinsanity a chance. Number 4.
Whoa!
Crash Bash. The first Crash game out of the hands of the original creators Naughty Dog, Crash Bash was a Crash party game made by Eurocom. If there is one thing from my childhood that I remember, it's battling my buddies in this game for hours and hours and hours on end. This game is just purely addicting with its various minigames, good soundtrack and sound effects, and great mechanics. If you have never played this game, I would highly recommend it to you, as it has amazing multiplayer and still a great single player. However, be warned that this is without a doubt the hardest Crash Bandicoot game ever created. So be prepared to rage, to play levels again, and again, and again, but keep in mind, it's all worth it. Number 3.
Whoa!
Crash Team Racing. After Naughty Dog had developed the Crash trilogy, their contract with Universal still wasn't over. Naughty Dog decided to make their final Crash game a kart racer, and my god was that a great idea. Naughty Dog definitely knew what they were doing when they made this game. When the game initially released, it was met with some criticisms saying it was a Mario Kart clone, but I disagree entirely. I think it exceeds Mario Kart, or the Mario Karts at the time, in every way, shape, and form. I used to play this game with my dad so much that our controllers were beginning to break and wear down. This game is ridiculously fun, and what makes it especially fun is the battle modes you can play with friends. My god, my friends and I got so pissed at each other when we played this game, it was insane. Stepping outside of the fangasm for a moment, let's talk about the mechanics. They're great. They're absolutely spot on. You really can't get any better mechanics and controls in a kart racer if you tried. What makes it especially great is the innovative power sliding mechanic that lets you get a boost anytime you feel like, provided you have the skill. This kart racer felt just as a kart racer should. Fast, fluid, and fun. The 3 Fs. And fucking sadly isn't one of them. Another thing in this game is the hop mechanic that you can use to evade weapons, get more out of your jump boosts, and get on shortcuts hidden among the tracks. Hopping was never seen before, and it was an interesting and great mechanic that was introduced in CTR. Also, if you have 10 Wampa Fruit via picking them up around the track, you can power up the weapons you have, i.e. TNT crates turn into Nitro crates, missiles turn into 3 missiles, etc. This is definitely a fun mechanic and an interesting take on the race. This game also has boss races that you can unlock once you get through a certain part of the adventure mode, and for each boss race, each boss tries to screw with you in some way during the race, and you have to overcome the odds to win the race, which is fun and challenging at the same time. If you've never played this game, you've had absolutely no childhood. Even if you don't have a PS1 or 2, get an emulator and get this game. This game is absolutely wonderful and the bottom line best kart racer I've ever played in my entire life. So you may be asking yourself, what can top this? What did Naughty Dog do that was so great and fantastic? Well, you're about to find out. Number 2.
Wow!
Crash Bandicoot 2, Cortex Strikes Back. The second game in the Crash trilogy, this game perfected a lot of the things that its predecessor built upon. The Crash model looked so much better, and so did the engine. The engine was also a lot more powerful than before, and just made everything look a lot better. This game is the classic Crash experience, and should be respected and played as such. This game is truly what launched Crash to the pinnacle of fame and fortune that he is known for today. Being a mutated Bandicoot with a bunch of different toys. Though it's true that this game is absolutely wonderful, there is very little I can say about it without giving it away, so I'd recommend playing it for yourself and finding out what all the hubbub is about. And on a personal note, you need to play this game. It is great, it's absolutely wonderful, and as a gamer myself, you need to play it, or else you will never experience a true video game. The reason this segment is so short is I don't want to talk about it too much, or else it'll give the experience away and you need to experience it for your goddamn self! Before we go on to number 1, I want to talk about the Crash games that didn't make it on this list. Since Crash Bandicoot barely has any games passing up 10, more like 14, I want to talk about these games for a little bit. The 3 Crash Bandicoot games for the Game Boy Advance. Now the reason these games were not included on this list is these games were absolutely terrible. These games, without a doubt, were the worst Crash games ever made. Strictly because they're on the Game Boy Advance. Crash did not need the Game Boy Advance. He should never have been on the Game Boy Advance. It ruined him. The games were terrible, they were limited, they were ugly, they were just... the mechanics were bad. They were just terrible, terrible games. Especially the collaboration with Spyro. I was so upset at this game because I love Spyro almost as much as I love Crash. And I feel like if they were going to do a collaboration together, it should have been a lot better and should have been done in a better fashion. Say a PS1 game that actually had a plot. Crash Bandicoot 2, The Wrath of Cortex, I'm sorry. I believe there's a 2 in there. If there's not, it's just Crash Bandicoot, The Wrath of Cortex. This was the first Crash Bandicoot game off of the PS1. This was the PS2 debut of Crash Bandicoot. Now, Crash's controls in this game were slippery as hell. It was terrible, and the game just took a lot off of Warped and a lot off of 2. I'm sorry, this little segment is unscripted, so I'm just making it up on the fly. The Wrath of Cortex did a lot of things wrong in the sense that it kind of just repeated what Warped and Crash 2 did, and I feel like this game should have been obviously not as much as an innovation as 1, but it should have been a pretty big innovation due to it being on the PS2. And that's what disappointed me about this game. None of the Crash mobile games were featured on this list either, due to the same reasons as the Game Boy Advance games. They were just low-res and terrible, and Crash didn't even need to be on mobile. He should strictly be console. With the exception of the 3DS, I feel like, if done correctly, a Crash Bandicoot game on the 3DS would be very much appreciated, if it were in the hands of a capable developer. And finally, Crash Bandicoot Crystal's Wrath. This game is something you guys might not know about, considering it is not even released yet. It's not even in beta. It's being made by a small fan indie studio of Crash's, and they don't have any rights, so they won't be publishing it on consoles. They'll just be pumping out a fan game on the PC. And from what I've seen, even due to the fact that it's in the very early stages, it's looking very good. So I may have to revisit this list. And even though Crystal's Wrath probably won't be canon, it probably will be a lot better than a few of the Crash games I have listed on this list. Which is a sad thing to say. So those are the Crash games that didn't make it on the list, and here is number 1 the best Crash game of all time, in my opinion. Number 1! Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. The ending to the Crash trilogy, Warped is to Crash 2, as Crash 2 is to Crash 1. It improves the game on so many levels it's ridiculous. And now this time around, you're not only traveling to places, but time as well. With the same controls and engine as Crash 2, the new environment gives you a nice change of pace. The most remembered thing about this game is the bosses, and let me tell you, the bosses in this game are my favorite from any Crash game ever. They're just so great, I love them. I don't want to spoil too much for you, so just go out and play this game already if you haven't. In my opinion, this game is the best Crash game ever made, but you can feel free to disagree with me. All of these titles have so much replay value, it's insane. And it's a big reason that Crash has stayed with me throughout the years, and chances are, the rest of my life. Oh Crash. How I love you. You're so... I have a feeling this is bestiality. Oh god. What am I doing with my life? Worshipping a bandicoot. Life well spent! As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this top 10 video, because this is all made for you guys, and expressing my opinions and what I think about the gaming industry today, yesterday, and 10 years ago. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys later. My hair is still wet because we talked so much about Crash Bandicoot. Peace out. And no, it's not bestiality. Crash Nitro Kart is the poor man's kart racing game. Oh my god. I fucked it up so early. Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. The second game in the Trash trilogy. Crash Bandicoot. Taking out the garbage. Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. The ending to this motherfucker. Crash Bandicoot. No wonder this game became so popular as a fucking grammar. God damn it. Crash Bandicoot. Platforming elements and the detailed levers. Pull the lever, Kronk. Crash of the Titans. The reboot from Radical Entertainment in an attempt to bring a new good Crash franchise out of the woodwork, Crash of the Titans is an overwhelming... Whelp. On my back right now, please. Crash of the Titans. The reboot from Radical Entertainment in an attempt... Speak English. Crash of the Titans. The reboot from Radical Entertainment in an attempt to bring a new good Crash franchise out of the woodwork, Crash of the Titans is an overwhelmingly... God damn it. Crash of the Titans... Crash Team Racing. After Naughty Dog had developed the Crash Twix... God fucking damn it.